Okay, welcome everyone to tonight's Board of Education meeting. Notice is hereby given of the regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Town of Westfield in the County of Union, New Jersey at 7 p.m. on the evening of Tuesday, November 17th, 2020. The board meeting will be held via an online platform which can be accessed through WebEx. And those instructions are on the district website at www.westfieldnjk12.org. The meeting also can be accessed by phone at the following phone number: 1-415-655-0001 with an access code of 120-600-5387. That information is also available on the district website if you need to see the number again. Members of the public may submit comments by electronic mail and in written letter form to the board secretary and must be received no later than 24 hours prior to the start of the board meeting. The comments should be sent to Dana Sullivan at dsullivan, SULLIVAN, at westfieldnjk12.org. 2 opportunities for public comments are also provided during the meeting. The purpose of the meeting is to transact the regular business of the board and to transact any other business to come properly before the board. This is to advise the general public and instruct that it be recorded in the minutes that in compliance with Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, entitled the Open Public Meetings Act, the Westfield School Board on Thursday, November 12th, 2020, caused to be posted at the office of the Board of Education, located at 302 Elm Street, Westfield, New Jersey, and delivered to the Westfield Leader, the Star Ledger, the Westfield Library, Town Clerk of Westfield, Tap into Westfield, and thepatch.com, a meeting notice setting forth the time, date, and location of this meeting. Members of the public will be allowed to make public comments twice during the virtual meeting. In the beginning of the meeting, the public may comment on agenda items only. And at the end of the meeting, the public can comment on any topic. At the appropriate time on the agenda, the Q&A window will be open for the public access. If you wish to address the board, please type in your name and address. When your name is called, a staff member will unmute your microphone. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes and may only speak once. Please note that if any member of the public becomes disruptive during the remote meeting, the board president may mute the speaker's microphone. Continued disruptions may result in removal from the virtual meeting. Dana, may we have a roll call?
Michael Beelan.
Yes.
Kent Diamond.
Here, yes.
Brendan Galligan.
Oh, here.
Here.
Robert Garris.
Here.
Brian Morrissey.
Oh, I'm sorry, here. I couldn't get it to unmute.
Gretchen Oleg.
Here.
Tara Porto.
Here.
Peggy Oster.
Here.
Amy Root.
Here.
Thank you. Amy, would you lead us in a flag salute?
Certainly. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Amy. I think we have a couple of announcements. Michael, let's start with you.
Sure, I do have an announcement. Let me just get it up here. Okay. The Westfield High School Community Service Club is proud to announce its Leaf Raking Fundraiser. The annual event brings several hardworking high school students who will practice social distancing and wear face masks in your yard to rake leaves on either Saturday or Sunday morning between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m. through the weekend of November 29th. There's no set price to have your yard raked, but donations are welcomed and appreciated. Proceeds will go to a charitable organization. For more information or to set up a date to have your yard raked, please contact the student raking coordinators, Rachel Simpson and her email address is rsimpson, SIMPSON, 820 @gmail.com. So it's rsimpson820 @gmail.com. And Anna Titchener @gmail.com. And I'll spell that as well. It's ANNATICHENOR @gmail.com. So it's Anna Titchener @gmail.com. You can also contact faculty advisors, Zerona Koljak @ZKoljak, that's ZCULJAK @westfieldnjk12.org, and Gregory Bowers @gbowers @westfieldnj.org. That's GBOWERS @westfieldnj.org. So take advantage if you have the opportunity.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank
Kent,
you.
do you have an announcement?
Yes, I do. The Parent-Teacher Council, along with the school PTOs and PTSOs, invite students to celebrate their teachers this holiday season by submitting a short story, poem, or drawing describing how their teacher has gone above and beyond during this unprecedented year. Winning submissions will be displayed in the storefront windows of downtown Westfield throughout the month of December. The deadline to submit a submission is this Friday, November 20th. The submission form, entitled PTC/PTO Teacher Appreciation Contest, can be found on the Community Flyers page under the Family Resources tab at www.westfieldnjk212.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Kent.
You're welcome.
Brendan, do you have an announcement?
Yes, I do. The New Jersey School Boards Association is encouraging students to submit entries for the Garden State Film Festival's student submission category, titled New Jersey Hometown Documentary Short. This category is reserved for films that are written, directed, and shot by New Jersey high school and younger grade school students. Films must be 5 minutes or less and must focus on some aspect of the student's hometown, including topics such as profiles of interesting persons, places, time periods, or subjects related to the arts. Students are encouraged to submit entries by January 8th, 2021. For more information, visit www.njsba.org and or the Garden State Film Festival's website at gsff.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Brendan. Rob, I believe you have an announcement?
I do. 13 Westfield High School student athletes signed letters of intent with colleges and universities signifying recognition of the seniors' accomplishments, both academically and athletically. The following student athletes will continue to compete at the college level: Sebastian Burse, University of Massachusetts Amherst for lacrosse; Mia Fleming, University of Southern California lacrosse; Matthew Gruters, Sacred Heart University lacrosse; Catherine Hamilton, Duke University cross country track and field; Christopher Ho, University of Maryland, Baltimore County baseball; Jack Kalis Oglu, sorry about that, Connecticut College soccer; Laura Jane L.J. Keller, Colgate University lacrosse; Gianna Mangiamali, Franklin and Marshall College volleyball; Aiden McLean, Fairfield University lacrosse; Chloe Papalardo, Sakasana University lacrosse; Mac Pabilski, sorry about that, Villanova University lacrosse; Brooke Schurman, Salisbury University lacrosse; Colin Summers, Fairfield University golf. Congratulations and just good work.
Thank you, Rob. And congratulations to all the athletes. Brian, do you have an announcement?
I do. The College Women's Club of Westfield is holding a holiday wreath and grave blanket fundraiser to help support its 2021 scholarship fund. Deadline to order is Tuesday, November 24th. More details, including how to order, can be found on the district website on the Family Resources tab under Community Flyers. Learn more about the CWC at cwclubwestfield.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Gretchen, do you have an announcement?
I do. So I wanted to extend the board's congratulations to Sahar Aziz, Lila Morelli, and Sonal Patel, who won election to the Board of Education according to the unofficial results. We're told that official results will be announced this Friday, November 20th. We thank all of the candidates for their willingness to serve and their commitment to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Gretchen. Tara, do you have an announcement?
I do. This is a reminder that the deadline to submit an entry for the 8th annual Anti-Drug and Alcohol Palooza is Wednesday, December 2nd. The Westfield Municipal Alliance hosts the contest each year for elementary, intermediate, and high school students. Contest details and entry forms can be found under Health and Welfare on the Community Flyers page on the district website. Contest information is also posted on the Westfield Municipal Alliance website at www.westfieldnj.gov/WMA.
Thank you, Tara. Amy, do you have any announcements?
Yes, I actually have two. The first is that the district will be conducting a state-required test of its emergency alert system tomorrow, Wednesday, November 18th at approximately 4 p.m. All families and staff members will receive a text, email, and voice alert with instructions on how to update their emergency contact information as necessary. And the second announcement is that all Westfield public schools will be closed on Thursday, November 26th and Friday, November 27th for the Thanksgiving recess. Additionally, there will be no afternoon instruction for all students on Wednesday, November 25th. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Amy. I have an announcement concerning our next Board of Education meeting, which will be held on Tuesday, December 8th. The time and location of the meeting will be announced later. Should the meeting be virtual, instructions for the public regarding remote access are on the district website at www.westfieldnjk12.org under the Board tab. The complete agenda of the meeting will be available on Friday, December 4th, also under the Board tab on the website. And this will be our last meeting for the 2020 season. So, Dr. Dolan, do you have any announcements?
I do not now, not at this moment.
Okay, thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to recognize the public for agenda items only. If you have a question about an agenda item only, you can type in your name and address, and we will open up your speaker to ask the question. Brian, do we have anybody typing? Okay, we will have another opportunity for the public to make comments at the end of the meeting. So at this time, we'll move on, and I'm going to turn the meeting over to Dr. Dolan.
Thanks very much. And this evening I have two different reports. Let's start with the first one first. So to state the obvious, the very obvious, what a challenging time this is for all of us. Don't care how old you are or what you do in life, this is just a challenging time and has been. There are more questions than answers on most days. Let's just first think about our students, right? Whether our students are 5 years old or they're a middle school student or maybe they're a senior in our high school, their days are turned upside down and they're trying to make sense of it. Our parents are trying to deal with changes to their own jobs, their own lives, and trying to adjust to very different schedules for their children. Our teachers have had to reinvent what they do, how they reach students who are sitting right before them and students who are remote. And the truth is, I think we all have reasons to complain. We all have reasons to be frustrated. But when we all take a moment and take a breath, what is most important and what has been most important during all of this? Where do we have to focus our efforts, right? And that is on our health and the health of others. So throughout all these past several months, we have all counted on those who are in the medical profession. And I appreciate the many medical professionals in our town who have reached out to provide suggestions, resources, or their support to help our efforts in our schools. And in our schools, we depend on our school nurses, the public health system, and our district physician. These are the ones who are the experts. They have years of training, and they have the updated knowledge about COVID-19. And I'm sure we all join in thanking them for their work, for their advice. So tonight I've asked our district physician, Dr. Susan Kay, to explain the work we've been doing to follow the guidance from the health professionals and to do our best for our students, our families, and our community. So Dr. Kay, I'm so glad you're able to join us this evening.
Good evening, everybody, and thanks so much to everybody for letting me join the meeting tonight. So for those who don't know me, I am Dr. Susan Kay, and I've been the school physician in Westfield since 1998, so for over 20 years. I have lived in this community since 1983, and my children went to the public school systems in Westfield. So I am definitely a member of this community. And I know how difficult the last 9 months have been for all of us. I'm also a practicing physician in our community, and I have seen the consequences of COVID-19 on my patients and on my staff and on the hospital staff at Overlook every single day since March, really since mid-February. So I'm really here tonight to sort of support the decisions that have been made and are being made by Dr. Dolan in consultation with Megan Avalon from the Westfield Board of Health. I think that we all want the same things for our kids and for our school district. We want to keep our kids in school, and we want to have them participate in extracurricular activities. And that's exactly how we started the school year. But we also have to keep a constant eye on the data, and the data has not been looking good recently. So that you know, Essex and Bergen and Union counties have the highest case report rates in the state of New Jersey. And I'm sure that everybody here has heard about the recent state data, which has also not been good. This past weekend had the highest single daily case total since this pandemic began, and the largest daily death total since the middle of July. The same number of hospitalizations at our local hospital now, we have the same number as we did in mid-March. And so when we were heading for an exponential increase in our admission rates. So we're on the precipice right now of beginning that exponential increase. And with all of us heading indoors for the winter, it's likely to be very bad. I think people who participated, and I did not, but in the council meeting, I guess last week, heard that there were a reported 200 cases of COVID in the 8 towns that the Westfield Health Department covers. And to date, as of last night, the number of cases reported in Westfield from the beginning of November, for the month to date, was 195 cases. And we know that these numbers aren't really very accurate because for a number of reasons. People aren't getting tested. There are a lot of people out there who are positive and asymptomatically so and are not being tested. We know that the rapid testings that are being done at some of the walk-in centers, places like City MD, might not be reported to the health department, to the state health department, or to our local health department. And so the case rates could be 20% higher than what we're getting reported through our health departments. Community spread is really wide right now, and it's even difficult to do contact tracing because of the wide community spread. But I do want to thank all of those of you on this call and joining this meeting who have responded and cooperated with our contact tracers, because it's really, really important that we do this really critical job in trying to understand the extent of COVID in our community. So as a member of this community, and I live here and I drive my car around and I walk into town and I walk around town, and I can see that what I'm seeing happening in our communities is a lot of people out unmasked. I see kids riding their bicycles and congregating in parking lots and in the parks with their friends and laughing and talking and yelling as kids do, but they're unmasked. I walk through town and I see so many people on the sidewalks unmasked, walking within 6 feet of each other. And I see, besides being unmasked, I see very little social distancing going on in our public spaces. You see people eating together outside, which is great to support our local restaurants, but many of them are clearly not household members, and they're eating outside, talking unmasked. So what we're seeing now is the spread of COVID through small group gatherings, not large group gatherings. And it's becoming a problem. And so, you know, we're being asked to follow just 3 very simple rules. And that's wear a mask when you're out in public, socially distance, and wash your hands frequently. And so the decision to close schools and to suspend sports and extracurricular activities are never made lightly. We know the burden that the community has because of these decisions. And that it's not meant to punish students and to punish families. It really is meant to protect our community. And this is not about a single individual. It's not about a single family. It really is about all of us. And so the choices that we make as individuals will now start to reflect on our hospitalization rates and the death rates that we're going to see in our local hospitals over the next several weeks and months. It's simply the science of a pandemic. This is what happens. And so none of us want to go into lockdown again like we had to do last spring. It did work. It brought down our hospitalization rates and our COVID rates. It actually brought our rates down to daily hospitalizations from the high 30s to 0 to 2. And that's where we've been from sort of June through mid-October. And beginning in mid-October, we started to see the rise. And in the last week and a half, it's just taken off. And so sort of my plea to you is that we begin to do the mitigation techniques that we know work, and we do them now while we still can do them, which means masking, social distancing, not congregating in large groups, not meeting indoors, and so that we don't wind up where we were back in the middle of April and putting a lot of our healthcare workers, by the way, at risk as well. It's just simply the science of contagious communicable respiratory diseases. These are the things we need to do. I know that we all want to get our kids back in school and back into extracurricular activities and back into sports. And I think the only way we're going to do that is by following some of these very, very simple public health techniques. And so having said that, I will turn the meeting back over to Dr. Dolan.
Thank you very much. I don't know if any of the board members might have any questions while Dr. Kay is with us.
Dr. Dolan, I don't have a question, but I do want to thank Dr. Kay for coming in and her comments in reference to what Megan Avalona and the rest of the staff and contact tracers at the Regional Board of Health have been doing. And it's really incredible work we'll do. And to think that some folks don't appreciate or will make comments that really make it seem as if some of these decisions are made in a vacuum or made in a way that isn't thoughtful. But it's clear from what Dr. Day says, if you the council meeting last week and listen to Megan and others talk about this process and what they're doing, it's just incredible work. And it's hard to believe that we're not, and we're in the thick of it more now than ever before. But thank you, Dr. Dolan and the staff in Westfield for what you do as well when it comes to our response to COVID and the issues that we've dealt with the district. So thank you.
I guess I'd also like to thank you, Dr. Kay, for coming and also being with us for such a long time. I mean, the time you've been with us is, being with us for a long time, you understand our community, you understand our schools, you've seen them grow and shrink and things that we've gone through. So you're a great resource for us to reach out to. And I guess I'm just going to throw out here, because you're here, is so they're telling you to get tested if you have no symptoms. And I always wonder, as I sit home, I had an incident at work and I had some employees that were COVID positive, and I wanted to get tested just to make sure that I was not had not contracted the disease, but the lines are so very long. So I wonder a little bit, is your advice is if you really have no symptoms, should you be, waiting online to try and get a test to see if, you have it? Or, I mean, because the lines are so long, it's very hard to be able to get the test and the results back again. So just, your advice in reference to that.
So yes, you should be tested if you spent, if you were unmasked within 6 feet of somebody for any length of time. If you spend time, if that's what happened, you should be tested. Now, what I'm saying to you is I know the lines are really long at places like City, MB, et cetera. Atlantic Health is standing up a bunch of new COVID testing sites for walk-ins. There was one that was just opened at Union County at the Galloping Hill location, the Union campus. There are going to be others opened in our community so that we'll be able to test asymptomatic individuals. We're talking about asymptomatic individuals. So Atlantic has opened, I think they've stood up about 8 of those facilities in our communities that we serve. And as I said, there's one at Union County right now in the Galloping Hill location. Walk in, no appointment, asymptomatic individuals. If you have spent time unmasked in a room with somebody, and now the recommendations change from 15 minutes to 15 accumulative minutes, then you should be tested, because unless we start testing as many people as we can, we're not going to know where this virus is, and we're not going to know who needs to quarantine. The reason it's important for you to test is because if you're asymptomatic and you don't quarantine or isolate, you're now going to spread it to everybody else that you come in contact with, right, over the next 10 to 14 days. So yes, if you meet that criteria, you should get tested. I know it's been a problem, and I know a lot of the local places are having a hard time. There's a wait. There's also the Kane University drive-through that's available. You can go online and you can register. You don't have to be symptomatic for that one as well. And you can book an appointment. So right now they're booking appointments. I think their earliest appointment is now next Monday, which is a long time to have to wait. But I will get you information in writing, paper information that you can maybe distribute to the community for sites that are available to our community members to get tested for asymptomatic individuals.
Thank you. I think that would be great information for us to have, because of my situation, I did do a lot of research both here in Union County and up in Passaic County where I work, and where people told me the information was really readily available. It's kind of hard to find all the places that you can go get the test. So any information that we could put up on our website, I think would be benefit to our community. So
happy to share.
Just make
Amy,
make a small plug for the Union County testing location at Kane. My boys were there in August, and it took 8 days to get the results back. But I went on Friday. I was in the comfort of my own car, windows rolled up, listening to my music instead of waiting in a waiting room at City MD or something like that. The testing was really quick. And then I did have to wait over the weekend, but I got my results today. So 48 business hours later, I had my results. And so that was kind of nice to see that. And you can make an appointment. You're there with lots of other people, but you're in the comfort of your own car. And I just wanted to say too, thank you too for explaining. I know it's kind of hard sometimes to sort of parse the differences between the numbers that we hear from the health department and the numbers sometimes that we as a Board of Education hear from Dr. Dolan, who kind of has more real-time information, because it does factor in some of the results of these rapid tests that aren't necessarily part of the official count. There was actually a big article in the Star Ledger today sort of talking about why there's a difference. So I know sometimes people feel like there's, it's a little bit mysterious because there's a difference, but we're glad to know that Dr. Dolan is working really with the widest array of the most current case information available. So thank you for highlighting that.
Brendan, I see.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment with contact tracing. The contact tracers, a lot of them are working from their own cell phones and aren't leaving voicemails. So the election's over. If you get a phone call from a number you don't recognize, please pick it up. It makes the contact tracer's job a whole lot easier, and helps the health department network where things are spreading. I know I've been guilty of ignoring every single call for the last 3 months that I didn't recognize unless I left a voicemail. So that now's the time to pick up the phone, now that things are starting to spread again at a high rate.
And I think I read that I think the governor said that maybe 60% of people are not responding to contact tracers in the state. That's across the state. That's not a local number. That's a extremely high number.
I'm surprised that 40% are actually picking up the phone and talking, to be honest.
It's a good point.
Great. Does anybody else have any other questions for Dr. K?
I have one question for Dr. K. I know you mentioned about people walking around town without masks. What's your recommendation as far as outside activities and kids participating in them? Should they not be participating in them? Should they wear a mask? I'm thinking, because there's a lot of questions that came up regarding outdoor athletics and how to be safe, and we've obviously canceled a lot of programs, but just going forward, what's your recommendation?
So my biggest concern is when I see people congregating outside and talking to each other in social settings and being right on top of each other for long periods of time. Our kids and a lot of adult members of our community are just not masking when they go out. They think that being outside somehow is sort of this magic space. It's not a magic space if you're close together and talking and eating and drinking and speaking and yelling. It's not a safe space. It's safer than being indoors for sure, but it's not completely safe if you're congregating close together. So anytime you have people who are within 6 feet of each other and are unmasked and speaking directly towards one another, yelling, huddling, that's where you put people at risk. So when people go outdoors to go running or take a walk or do those kinds of things by themselves, distance from people, I'm not saying you need to wear a mask in those circumstances, but when I go into town, I see people right next to each other, 3 people walking on the sidewalk together, no masks, walking down the sidewalk, coming towards me. I've got to step around them to get out of their way, and they are unmasked, and I don't want to be near them. So people think that being outdoors, that it's okay to be unmasked all the time outside, and that's just not always true. The safest thing is for us when we leave our homes to wear a mask. That's the safest thing for everybody, for us individually, for our families, and for our community members.
Thank you.
I hope that answers the question. You're welcome.
Any other questions for Dr. K? Well, thank you again, Dr. K, for joining us this evening. It was very informative. I'm glad people were able to ask questions, and I hope that if you send us that information, we can get it up on our website for easy access for all of our community members going forward. And we wish you a happy Thanksgiving and a healthy one going into these dark months of winter.
Yeah, thank you. And I would just like to say it's been a privilege actually to be a member of this community and the school community as well. My children went to the school, graduated, have had a fantastic education and a fantastic experience. So it's really an honor to have this position, to hold this job. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. K.
Good night. Let's have a good meeting.
Thank you. And as promised, I do have a second report. The second report actually deals with two state reports that are required, pandemic or not. So let me go through and review those. So the state has a number of different reports we have to do. Tonight we're talking about 2 of them. One is called the Student Safety Data System, and the other is the School Self-Assessment for Determining HIB Grade. And HIB is Harassment, Intimidation, and Bullying. Okay, so let me first focus on the Student Safety Data System. All right. The Student Safety Data System, actually it's required that I do a report to the public, to the board, twice a year. The first report deals with September 1 to December 31st, and the next part, January 1 to June 30th. Tonight, not surprisingly, I'm reporting on what happened in the schools from January 1, 2020 to June 30th, 2020. And not surprisingly, if you remember, it was mid-March when we went remote, right? So our students have been in school January, February, and the first 2 weeks of March, basically. And then we went remote. So looking at the different incidents that are listed, the numbers are really quite low because the students were home and we were all in lockdown, right? We still had incidents, no doubt, but not as many as normally. Incidents, by the way, you'll see the asterisks. That's defined as incidents that are having to do with either violence, vandalism, substance abuse, weapons, and or if harassment, intimidation, and bullying was confirmed. Okay, the state has very clear definitions as to what counts, and every school is required to announce those. You can have other incidents leading to removal, removal being suspension. It just would not be any of the ones I just listed. HIB alleged, that means somebody says there was a bullying incident, but after the investigation was done, it was determined it was not harassment, intimidation, and bullying. It could have been a code of conduct problem, but it wasn't harassment, intimidation, and bullying. We're also required to list how many HIB trainings are provided in the school and how many HIB programs. Trainings in general teach you about what the actual law or policy is, and the programs are more, building our students to be upstanders, getting our students to understand character education, et cetera. So again, these numbers are not particularly typical of our reports because most of this year our students and staff were remote. Okay. The second thing to report tonight is under the New Jersey Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act, every school has to have a team made up of administrators, teachers, and a parent who conduct self-assessments to determine how are we doing on working with our students to understand that harassment, intimidation, and bullying are not acceptable. And how do we make sure we're working on the climate in each of our schools? So every year, as part of this, these teams have to look at 8 core elements and rate themselves as to how they're doing. It's meant to be a self-assessment so that each year we continue to work and do a better and better job. So the 8 core elements involve the HIB programs I mentioned, training I mentioned already, other staff instruction and training programs, curriculum and instruction, HIB personnel. HIB personnel, we don't have anyone's hired just to do HIB, but we have individuals who have training who are determined to be the spokesperson in the building who really focuses on this, and the spokesperson in the district. They all have other jobs as well and other responsibilities. There is a strict incident reporting procedure that we have to follow that the state has come up with. We have a certain number of days for each aspect of it, and we have to make sure we're following that. And then we have to report to the HIBs according to state rules, and we certainly follow up on that. So now you're going to see how the different teams have to assess themselves on each of these different areas. This part's rather easy to see. If they haven't done anything regarding one of the areas, that's a 0. It goes up to, if you exceed the requirements, it's 3 points. So if you exceed in everything, if you are just perfect, which I don't think we've been yet, but if you were to be perfect, the maximum grade for a school would be 78 points. It means you've exceeded in every area. And we really do expect our teams to be honest when they're reviewing this information. So the breakdown, and the breakdown is what I'm required to present to you, talks about how each school ranked themselves in each of the areas. And looking through quickly, you can see in these first 2 core areas, all of the schools rank themselves as 2 or 3, so either meeting or exceeding. But you'll also see they're not exact because we are really trying to be reflective to do things better in each school. And moving on to the other core elements, you'll see again, in most cases, our students are doing well, and you'll see in, the high school is being reflected when they talk about their training programs and staff instruction. So obviously that team decided there are things they could do a little bit better next year. And moving on to the next areas, again, we have people who are looking and saying, all right, what do we need to do to make sure that everybody is on target regarding this? But in general, we're either meeting or exceeding, in general, not in every case. And then in the last 2 areas, the investigations and also in the HIB reporting. Okay. So all of these numbers, by the way, are then compiled, and you'll see the scores for 2019-20 last year for each building versus what happened the year before. And then all of this information, after I present it to you tonight, and after in the policy section, the board is asked to vote on this, then I have to submit all this information to the state of New Jersey. The state of New Jersey reviews all of it. If they have questions, they contact us and we have to provide documentation. And then towards the end of the school year, they will notify me as to whether they have agreed with these numbers. And then I will again present it to the public and to the board. Usually that happens sometime in May. So this is clearly, right now, it looks like a lot of numbers, but it truly is really important, right? We do want our students growing up knowing that the way we treat each other does matter, that harassing people is not acceptable, intimidating people is not acceptable, and nor is bullying. Honestly, if they learn that with us, if they practice that with us, if they make mistakes and we help them learn better, they're going to have a better life. And we're going to have a better community and a better country. So we really take this seriously. The people whose names are here are the anti-bullying specialists in each building. Please never hesitate to reach out to them if you have any questions. We also have information on our website, but this is important work that we do. And the reports don't look all that important, but the work we do is very important with our students, I think.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Dolan. Just a quick question. Since many of our students are using remote access to school these days, are we seeing any increase in cyberbullying or whatever, bullying through social media and so forth in our schools?
Sure, we certainly are seeing examples of it, there's no doubt. As of yet, I have not seen an increase in it, but we definitely are seeing it. One thing I would, we also are doing reminders, even though whether our students are remote or hybrid, our counselors especially are doing reminders with our students about what is acceptable and what is not. And anyone who has questions about this, I would really suggest you do reach out to your school, reach out to the counselors if you need assistance with this. It is difficult. Our children are online a lot these days, and there is so much they are able to do online. A lot of it probably a little bit beyond their years. So we do have resources out there to try to support parents, and our counselors also provide information to our students to try to make them a bit more informed. So are we dealing with it? Yes. Have we seen a huge increase in it? We have not, but I dealt with it earlier today, so it definitely is happening.
Thank you very much. Does anybody else have any questions for Dr. Dolan on the two reports that she presented?
I have a quick question.
Having seen these reports, two of them for the last 8 years, the numbers look pretty consistent. We self-evaluate ourselves pretty hard. So a 2 or a 3 isn't necessarily a bad score. It means that we're taking an honest look at things. And I didn't compare every number from past reports, but they look pretty consistent. Mostly middle scores, an occasional high grade and occasional low grade. Is there any areas that you're concerned about where our schools need to be doing things differently?
Sometimes when there's a change in personnel, that highlights where we have to make a focus. I would say that there definitely were challenges last year because there were some either training programs or assemblies we had planned that we then couldn't do because we went remote. So there were some challenges last year because we did go remote and to try to, I think our old systems maybe weren't functioning well at first. And I would also say it does change from school to school and level to level, because there are years where, I don't know, the new app that kids are using might create more problems. So it's not really terribly static. You have to keep on working on it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Kent, I believe you had a question also?
I did, but I think Dr. Dillon kind of answered it. My question was, it looked like most of the schools were down year over year, and I was curious if that was the lockdown impact.
Yeah, it was. We even had one school where there was an incident right as school was closing, and like we're so good at following all the timelines and all, but it was right as we moved to lockdown. So that had an impact on that. And then additionally, some of what was planned for the spring, because honestly, you really need to focus on this generally in the spring, right? That often is somehow children get extra energy in the spring sometimes. So a lot of things that were planned for them did not happen.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions for Dr. Dolan? No? Well, thank you very much, Dr. Dolan. I appreciate the information. At this time, we'll move on to our next agenda item. At this time, I'd like the board to approve the minutes of the board meeting held on October 27th, 2020. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to item number 7, personnel. I'd like the board to consider items 1 through 23. Do I have a second?
Second.
Bob, thank you very much. Any questions?
I do have one item for personnel.
And Dr. Dolan, I think you have something you'd like to speak about?
So tonight I'm announcing with regret the retirement of Mary Ann Kukas, a paraprofessional with almost 9 years of service to some of the district's youngest learners. Mary Ann was a student assigned paraprofessional at Franklin for 3 years, and more recently, she has been a valuable addition to an ABA class at Lincoln School. Her dedication and tireless support of the students and her skills and careful attention in compiling data make her an important part of the ABA program. And we wish Mary Ann a happy and healthy retirement.
Thank you, Dr. Dolan. Any other questions on personnel items? No? Dana, I believe we're ready for roll call.
Mike Beelan,
Yes.
Ken Diamond,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Rob Garrison,
Yes.
Brian Morrissey,
Yes.
Gretchen Oleg,
Yes.
Tara Porto,
Yes.
Peggy Oster,
Yes.
Amy Root.
Yes.
Hey, thank you very much. Facilities, Michael, do you have a report?
Yes, I have a brief update. Really, the focus has been recently on the Edison Fields project. The committee had a meeting with the Spizo Architecture Group, which is the firm that the town of Westfield has hired to evaluate whether we can use the Edison athletic fields for expanded activities. So they reviewed it with the committee, and then the facilities committee also met. It's still a work in progress. But they are making progress. They have been reaching out to the athletic director, Sandy, and to the band directors to just get their feedback so that we can try, if the plan does go forward, that we can utilize it in the best way that'll help both our internal programs as well as any external programs that might use the new field in this joint development effort. Don't have an update yet as far as timing, but it is moving along. And we have no facilities meetings scheduled yet for the rest of the year at this time. And that's all.
Mike, just to clarify, the facilities committee didn't meet with the architects. That was the town's committee, and we had to review their preliminary plan.
That's correct. The facility, we have two different committees. So first there's the Edison Field Committee, which Peggy and I are a member of, as well as Dana, representing the Westfield Board. And then there are town representatives, which include Jim Gilday. And then there are other committee members, such as the Recreation Committee. And we had a meeting with Spizel to go and review their plans. After reviewing them, there were some changes that were being requested. So they asked us to just share only with the committee members. They didn't want to spread it wide to the whole board yet because it's still a work in progress. So the Westfield Board of Education Facilities Committee met just with Dana and just reviewed what their interim plan is that's going to be revised. And now they're still continuing to do the research.
Okay.
That clear it up for you, Brendan?
Oh yeah, I was part of the meeting. I was just trying to make sure the process was clear, that we weren't meeting with the town's architects.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael. I'm sure this will continue into 2021. I hope that all the pieces fall together in reference to this project.
Wait, Peggy, I'm sorry. Before we move on, I guess I just want to sort of piggyback on Brendan's question and just for purposes of clarification. It's my understanding that to your point, that we're looking at 2021. I mean, these are still very preliminary designs, and to the extent we're getting input from, staff members about the layout and things like that, it does not mean that this is a done deal, or that there couldn't still be, a roadblock such as an environmental issue or something like that comes up down the road. Is that an accurate statement?
That's absolutely accurate. This is just a preliminary review to see what can be done with the field. It would still have to go through a whole budgetary process that we don't even know what the cost yet on whether the cost would be approved, whether it would have to go out to bond or not, whether it would come out of reserves from the town. None of that's been determined. This is just a preliminary investigation to see, is it feasible to go and use the fields for other activities and optimize the use of the fields. And it's just a study that's going to come back. There is no shovels going in the ground from this study at all.
Right, and I don't mean to suggest that I hope it doesn't work out. I'm just simply, I don't want there to be anything misconstrued by the public that we're sort of on the verge of, of this tremendous project behind Edison, because I think we still have a ways to go.
Right, and I appreciate you clarifying that, Gretchen. I think there are many things to overcome, and I believe that the first pass was truly a preliminary drawing that all the members of the committee saw. Based off of that, there was still a lot of work to determine, what was the best use of the field? How could we get the best use of the field? There were discussions, as you mentioned, in reference to environmental concerns. So there are many, many things that need to be finalized in reference to this. And we're just working to get the drawings to be the best that we can look at to move forward into those next stages. We don't know whether or not, there's environmental issues and so forth that need to be looked at. So there are many, many questions still in reference to this. And it is being, we should reiterate that this is being done through the town, not through the Board of Education. We are just working with them to make sure that all of the needs are met of the community, both the school community and the community in general. But it is a town project, not a Board of Education project.
Mm-hmm. And these preliminary designs are essential for environmental review, budgeting. They need to know what they're going to build, or what they want to build before any of those other boxes can be checked off.
And one other further thing on top of that, even if we do take everything and we start to move forward, it still needs to come to a legal agreement between the town of Westfield and the Westfield Board of Education to see if we can come to an agreement on how they can potentially use the field going forwards. And none of that has been done at all yet at this time. Until we know what the environmental impact is, what the overall cost of the program is, that will then determine whether the town is even going to move forward with this or not. If it's too costly, the town may decide to just defer it completely. So it's just, as everybody mentioned, there's many balls up in the air before this will move forward. But it's just, we are looking at we're continuing to participate in the meetings to see how it can potentially come to fruition, but it's a long road ahead.
Correct. I guess the word is preliminary, right? With big, bold letters, bright, blinking, still very early stages of this project. So thank you, Michael, and thank you, Brendan and Gretchen, for bringing the questions forth in reference to it. Okay, we're moving on to you, Gretchen, long-range planning.
There's no report tonight.
Great. Thank you very much. Brendan, do you have anything for policies?
I do. I ask the board to approve policy item number 1.
Second.
Thank you, Kent. This is to approve the 2019-2020 self-assessment for HIB grades for Westfield High School, Edison, Roosevelt, Franklin, Jefferson, McKinley, Tamaulipas, Washington, Wilson, and all of our schools. And this is the report that Dr. Nolan just gave us earlier tonight. I ask the board to approve it so that we can submit it to the state.
Okay.
Any questions that we didn't ask before? All right.
Mike Bealey,
Dana?
Yes.
Kent Diamond,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Rob Garrison,
Yes.
Brian Marcy,
Yes.
Gretchen Olive,
Yes.
Cara Porto,
Yes.
Peggy Oster,
Yes.
Amy Root.
Yes.
And that's it.
Okay. Thank you very much, Brendan. Do we have a policies meeting scheduled again for December, or?
We had a policies meeting yesterday, a brief one at lunch at noon, and we will have another one in December.
Okay.
We'll be meeting with Brian Ocker to discuss some inventory policy, how we're keeping track of our technology.
Great. Thank
We
you.
do not yet have a date or time for that.
Okay. Thank you, Brendan. Moving on, curriculum, Amy.
Yes, I would like the board to consider curriculum items 1 and 2. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Kent. Item number 1 is approving for second reading, updated curricula for social studies for grades 5 through 9 and a high school elective called mock trial. And curriculum item number 2 is the approval of 2 voluntary student teachers and interns. Does anyone have any questions or comments? No, I guess
yeah, Amy,
go ahead.
How is the intern program going to work this year with social distancing?
I think we are trying to see where we can, if we need in-person people. Paul, did you just turn on your microphone?
Yeah, but you're doing just fine.
I was starting off, but yes.
Yeah.
We had talked earlier at one of our SIP meetings about if any of the student teachers or interns could be viable substitute teachers who could have an in-person presence in a classroom while a teacher is teaching remotely, that could be an option for some of these teachers, teacher candidates. But I think it sort of depends on what the needs are of the school, where they would be assigned and where they would do their training. Is that accurate, Paul?
Yeah, it would be the exception if someone were interacting, and it definitely wouldn't be at the elementary level.
Okay.
And Paul, how does that work with the state licensing? Student teaching's a part of the process. So if it's augmented, is the state accepting a different version of student teaching, or are they going to have to redo it?
No, so far they are. I think the student teachers are having trouble getting placement though. So, but then again, we're getting a good benefit from having more people that are qualified or were about to be qualified to interact with the students.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Paul. Okay, any other questions? No? Okay, Dana, should we do a roll call?
Sure. Michael Beelan?
Mike, you're muted.
Mike?
Yes.
Kent Diamond?
Yes.
Brendan Galligan?
Yes.
Rob Garrison?
Yes.
Brian Morrissey?
Yes.
Gretchen Oleg?
Yes.
Tara Porto?
Yes.
Peggy Oster?
Yes.
Amy Root?
Yes. Boy, the suspense at the beginning there was killing me, Mike. SIP has our next meeting scheduled for December 3rd. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much, Amy. Moving on to finance. Kent, do you have a report?
I do. Thank you. I asked the board to consider items 1 through 7. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Brendan.
It's actually 1 through 8 now, Kent. Yeah.
One more added today.
Yes. All right. My apologies. I thought I grabbed the last one. Okay. The big item, though, is the first item where we're approving the state grant of $355,000 from limitation of new cameras, phones, and other devices related to security. Does anyone have any questions about any of the items 1 through 8? All right. It's pretty straightforward. Dana, may we have a roll call, please?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Did someone second that?
I did.
Brendan did.
Brendan, okay, sorry.
It's
Mike
okay.
Beelan?
Yes.
Kent Diamond?
Yes.
Brendan Galligan?
Yes.
Rob Garrison?
Yes.
Brian Morrissey?
Yes.
Gretchen Oleg?
Yes.
Tara Porto?
Yes.
Peggy Oster?
Yes.
Amy Root?
Yes.
Thank you. And our next Finance Committee meeting is this Friday.
Great. Thank you very much, Kent.
You're welcome.
Moving on to technology. Bob, do you have a report?
No report for this month, but I am putting out an email tomorrow for a tentative date for December 4th, which is Friday. That's the Friday before our next board meeting. So I'll float that email out tomorrow. Hopefully Brian and Marianne can make that along with the other board members, Tara and others.
Great. Thank you, Rob. At this time, I'd like the board to consider the notes for the record. Okay. Thank you very much. Do we have any unfinished business? Seeing nobody come forth. Do we have any new business? Okay. Does anybody have any liaison reports? Okay, Rob?
Yes, the Wilson PTO met a couple of weeks back. Really good meeting discussing a number of topics that touch upon some important issues, including technology and some other things. Of course, the biggest issue, as is common throughout most of the PTOs, is the fundraising efforts. Trying to be as creative as possible this year with online remote fundraising efforts, since there will not have really the ability to have these in-person events. So we'll post them on the, they'll be on the Wilson site, and emails will be sent out to parents, and hopefully we can get as much participation as possible. Thank you.
Great. Any other liaison reports? Brendan?
Friday night, I sat in on the NJSBA's Board of Directors meeting, and the big takeaway from that was our workshop that's normally in person was remote this year, and all the recordings and classes that would normally take place in person are going to be up and available over the next year. You'll be able to sit in, go to the website, participate, or take any of these continuing ed courses for board members and receive full credit as long as you watch the video to the end. And they do have a way to track that, and you'll automatically get the credit for any classes you take.
Great. Thank you for the information. Any other liaison reports? Okay, that leaves me. I did attend, well, I'm missing tonight's board meeting at Jefferson School. It's going on right now. But I did attend last week the Westfield High School PTSO board meeting. They too, like Rob, are trying to figure out how they're doing all of their things that they do for the students in this virtual mode that we're living in. I will piggyback to Rob, some of it is about fundraising, and they are really, the thing that they're trying to work with is the community, to engage both the students and the community, and make sure we're supporting our local businesses and so forth. I know some of the schools are doing pizza cards that you can buy a pizza card up front, and when you go to whatever pizza places are participating, you can use one of the punches on your card. So they're trying to work together both with the schools and the communities to support each other. Also, very encouraging at the high school. They put out for mini grants from teachers, and they had a great response. I think they had about 10 teachers get back to them in reference to mini grants, some doing with technology and different things that they need for remote learning. So it's great to see that the teachers are reaching out to use the PTSOs to get some of these things that they don't have, but also to increase their educational abilities through the remote process. So that was very, it was a positive thing that, I saw from the high school PTSO, but they're continuing to think, how can they keep the high school community engaged while they're remote? And they're doing some, good things up there. So I enjoy working with those ladies, and, they are committed to making the school the best that it possibly can. So if we don't have any other liaison reports, at this time, I'd like to recognize the public for questions and comments. As was stated at the beginning of the meeting, if you would like to make a comment or have a question, you can state your name and address, and our technology guru will open up for you to speak during the meeting. Okay.
It looks like we have two people that have.
Right, Brian gave us 1 minute. If you just give us a minute, Brian will open up the mic to.
Okay, so first person will be Mark Friedberg. So Mark, I'm unmuting you now.
Can you hear me, Brian?
Yes, we can. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Brian. Nice to see you again. Good evening, Dr. Doolin and the Board of Ed. Thank you for giving me.
State your address also at the beginning, your name and address, just so we have it for the record.
Yeah, my name is Mark Friedberg. I live at 105 Linden Avenue.
Thank you.
In Westfield. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak during the public comments portion of the meeting. I live in Westfield and I have a child who plays sports for Westfield High School. I believe there's one thing we can all agree with. There's one thing we have in common as parents, administrators, board members, teachers, and coaches, and I heard it tonight during this meeting. We can all agree that we want the best outcome for our students. Any decision or risk, any changes that you make as a governing body of the school district to deal with the COVID, I'm convinced has always been made with the students' best interest in mind. Which brings me to the reason I'm making public comments tonight to the Board of Ed. Since the opening of the school year in September, there have been 3 two-week suspension of high school athletics. The pattern is terrible. It goes like this. You monitor for COVID in the school community. We suspend the athletics for 2 weeks. You or we return to play. And then we do it the same way we did it before. And then we monitor for COVID. We suspend athletics for 2 weeks and we return to play again and again. And I think we heard comments from Dr. K that we're not changing our behaviors. So I come here tonight to seek your consideration and guidance on creative approaches to a return to play. Somehow we must break the cycle of suspend and return and suspend and return. So I ask, why do all sports have to be grouped together? You're punishing everyone unequally and unfairly. With enough resourcefulness and resources, I believe it's possible to come up with a contingency plan that does not create a blanket sentence for everyone. So could you please consider that not all sports carry the same risk of COVID spread? I did listen carefully to Dr. K's comments. I didn't hear enough about cohorts and the differences between different groups and how they behave and a return to play safely. Team by team, is tennis the same as a contact sport? Also, for example, there was no evidence of any positive COVID cases on one of the varsity sports teams. So, please recognize, and I know it's hard for you, and it's been hard, that the suspension has penalized everyone for the failure of the few. And then please consider that I've read and I've seen other high school athletic departments in New Jersey choose to shut down individual teams that test COVID positive and did not shut down all athletics. Season 2 for high school sports is right around the corner. It's, according to the NJSIAA, it's supposed to start on December 3rd, but time is running out. So if you're willing to consider other ideas and approaches to safely returning to play, then you must need more resources. What kind of resources do you need? Is it money, medical staff, tests, logistics coordinators? I don't know if I want to say this, but why can't every athlete test weekly like they do in college sports? Why don't you hire more monitors? And that might not be your domain, but if we want to return safely, people might have to make changes. Could you reconfigure playing fields and facilities to prevent overlap? So it should be obvious that there are a lot of disappointed student athletes, and that turns into somewhat disgruntled community. So here is a way to turn that around. To do what I'm asking takes effort and resources. Can you please consider, what I've said tonight? And I believe that if you consider other ideas and approaches, make exceptions, get creative, then the community of students and parents will definitely support you. Thank you.
We appreciate your comments. And we will take them into consideration going forward. We appreciate them. Brian, do we have another?
Yes, next we have Lee Schaefer. Lee, you're unmuted now.
Lee, are you there? Can we, Brian, move on to Mary Wickens and then come back again and see?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, Mary, you're unmuted now.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for letting me speak, everyone. I was just curious. I had sent.
Once again, Mary, just if you give your.
Oh, sorry. Yes, Peggy. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Mary Wickens, 111 Tudor Oval.
Thank you.
Sure, no problem. Because I write it in the chat. I don't think I have to say it, but you're right. I have to say it. I had written 2 letters. I don't know if I'm supposed to read them or you guys read them out loud.
I think if they're your letters, we would like you to go ahead and read them, and just stay within the 2 to 5 minute sort of range. Our range is 3, but I've read your letters, so that I think you'll be fine.
Okay. Well, if everybody had a chance to read them, I don't know if you did, I could just like recap them so we have enough time to, go back and forth. I sent them to everybody. First, really quickly, was the middle school schedule. And that kind of went in a different direction than I was hoping for, with more time being added for the school day for those kids. It's just my opinion. I mean, it just started yesterday and we're working through it. But already my student in the 8th grade, who is a good student, wound up with 7 assignments due the next day after being in school for until 2:30 on the computer. So I'm hoping that doesn't continue, and I hope we still look at that schedule a little more clearly in terms of making sure that these kids are not overwhelmed and overburdened, especially now that we're going into the winter and there's not that many opportunities to get out in terms of, having some downtime for their mental health. Because as a middle school educator, I have seen a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, a lot of, just non-compliance with going on because of the pressures of the amount of time that they're at school on the computer. So I just wanted to put that out there. And also, my other comment was about rethinking closing the schools through the holidays. And I'm actually glad Dr. K was on there because she actually made a lot of good points on why we should. It's not looking good, as she said. One of the statements from the government and one of the statements from Dr. K was not meeting indoors, which is where the kids are going. They're meeting indoors in school. She did have an error in saying that, when you're going to get tested, according to the CDC, it's 15 minutes whether you're masked or you're unmasked. That's on the CDC website. So it doesn't make a difference if you're masked or unmasked. If you're in contact for 15 minutes, cumulative, you have a chance to contract the disease and probably should be tested. And I think we're putting a lot of staff and students at risk by keeping them in during this season when people are going to be traveling. And we know, in particular, Westfield parents really want their kids in school. I happen to not be one of them, but I know as an educator, they're not always truthful with saying they haven't been somewhere and still sending their kids to school, not complying with contact tracing, like that. So I have a deep concern for the safety of our staff and students during this time when there's going to be a lot of movement in and out of state with families being in groups inside and winter coming up. So thank you for giving me the chance to speak.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mary. I think all board members have seen the letters that you put together, and we do appreciate your support of the education system here in Westfield, and we will take those into consideration. And I do believe that, many parents have written to us over, since September with suggestions and so forth. And Dr. Dolan does take those suggestions into consideration along with her administrators, and which is why we come up with changes along the road in reference to what we do every day. So we will continue to look at your comments and so forth, and see what we can do, what's best for our community, which follows the state guidelines also for what we do here in the community for education, and go from there. Does anybody else have anything else they want to say in reference to that? Okay, thank you very much, Mary. Brian, I believe that Lee Schaefer fixed his mic.
We can find out. Lee, you're unmuted now.
Lee, can you hear us at all? He actually seems to be having some technology issues.
I wonder if Lee is in the same boat that Dr. K was in at the beginning of our meeting. Because it does say she can hear us, and it looks like she's unmuted. From Brian's side, she is, but.
Recently, Microsoft pushed a Windows update that added privacy settings to the microphones.
Hey now.
So it's possible that caught me up in a meeting the other day where I was unmuted, but the computer wasn't allowing my microphone to interact with WebEx.
Oh, that's frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
Well, didn't we offer a phone number that can be called into in addition to this platform? Maybe Lee can call that phone number and dial in from her landline.
Would that work, Brian?
Yes, it would.
Okay, Lee, so if you'd like to try, I'll tell you the phone number. I'll try and go as slow as I can. The phone number is 1-415-655-0001. And if you still have your pen and paper, you need the access code, which is 120-600-5387.
Good idea, Tara. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Give her a minute. If you need more of the information, just type it in at the bottom and I can state it again.
I'm trying to send the code in the chat as well, but it's not.
Yeah, my chat was just disabled for whatever reason.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me? Wow.
Let's all of us mute ours.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Peggy, for slowly reading me out the number. I'm sorry I'm having technical difficulties tonight. I don't know what's going on. I use this technology for work all the time. So anyway, thank you for accommodating me. I appreciate it. So basically, I just wanted to...
Lee, just tell us your name and address for the record.
Sure, sorry. Lee Schaefer, 755 Carlton Road.
Thank you.
I'm going to mute my computer so I don't hear myself 10 times. So basically, thank you so much, everybody, for giving me 2 or 3 minutes to speak. I really just want to reiterate what Mary said. I appreciated Dr. K's comments, but I'm frankly a little shocked that it wasn't immediately followed by an announcement that the schools would be closing. I would like to just say that as a parent, I've really appreciated the lengths that our educators have gone to this school year. My children started hybrid, and I could see immediately the struggle that the teachers had with the remote kids, the hybrid kids, everything. For the last 3 weeks, my kids have been fully remote. And I just really wanted to express my concern for any of the pregnant educators in the district. As you guys know, as I wrote to you early this week, the CDC released new guidance for pregnant women, just stating that pregnant women are more likely to have severe illness if they catch COVID-19, and that also there can be adverse pregnancy outcomes. So I just am echoing a plea for the pregnant educators who might be requesting to teach remotely during this time. I'm making a plea that their requests go to the top of the pile. So that's it for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your patience, Lee, and for your comments, and we will take them under consideration. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak from the participants? Anything, Brian?
Mary Wickens has requested to make one more comment.
Okay, we can go ahead since we don't have anybody else in line to speak. Go ahead, Mary.
Okay, Mary, you're unmuted.
Hi, thank you. Sorry, I forgot one other thing. Mary Wickens, 111 Tudor Oval.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I remembered. I also just wanted to reiterate one comment that I had in my letter regarding closing schools. I was talking about, I made a comment about possibly having a dashboard on the Westfield website about the COVID cases going around in the district to, further the transparency between parents and staff so that they can make decisions whether or not to pull their kids, keep their kids. I used to work in the district, so I know a lot of teachers and have heard, there's cases at Lincoln with a bus driver where other students may have been affected. Other schools maybe have been affected. I've been informed there might be a case at Edison, and it's also concerning that all of the high school cases have not had any connection to other schools, which I find kind of unrealistic given the amount of siblings that there are. So I would appreciate, some kind of dashboard that goes up. You can see some on other district websites. I know Piscataway has one that they use to keep the community informed of the cases going around, including how many cases are in buildings for students, staff, and also how many people need to quarantine. So that's just an idea. I thought that would be very transparent for the community and for people to make decisions regarding their children's safety and also for staff. Also, I've heard from my teacher friends in Westfield that they are asking for extension in their leaves for childcare. And I know the FFCRA does expire on the 21st, the December 31st. And they are requesting those leaves because a lot of districts are closing, including their children's schools. I'm hoping that they would be able to extend their leaves at least until that date of expiration that the governor has right now. I'm sure that might be expanded even more in the future given the rise of cases. So thank you for that additional information you let me share.
Thank you, Mary. And I will let you know that when I met with Dr. Dolan on Monday morning, we talked a little bit about the dashboard. So it's something that we're working on and seeing whether or not it's a usable tool for us in Westfield to get out. Mostly, we want to make sure that we get out correct information. Bad information causes rumors and so forth. So it is something that Dr. Dolan and Miriam again are looking at. And if it works for our community, we'll definitely put something into place. But every community is a little different, and we'll see whether or not it's something that is beneficial for the Westfield community. And thank you again, Mary. Do we have anybody else, Brian?
No, I don't see anyone else.
Okay. Well, that being said, if nobody else from the board has anything, I am going to pose that we adjourn the meeting this evening. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Tara. Everybody be safe. Enjoy this adjusted Thanksgiving holiday. And we will see you back here in December.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Hey, y'all.
Bye.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.